In Accra, Ghana, Amara Nyarko seemed to have everything a woman could dream of: a beautiful home, designer clothes, and a husband everyone admired. At 34, she was one of the city's top event planners, known for her grace and creativity. Her husband, Kojo Owusu, was a successful businessman whose name often appeared in magazines beside her. Together, they looked like the perfect power couple, smiling at charity galas, giving interviews about love and success, and posting flawless photos online. People called them #couple goals. But behind the glamour, Amara felt something missing. The laughter they once shared had faded. Kojo no longer looked at her with warmth. His eyes now carried control, not care. He decided what she wore, who she met, and even which projects she could take. Whenever she questioned him, he'd smile coldly and say, "You worry too much, Amara. Trust me." One quiet evening, while helping organize some files in Kojo's home office, she stumbled across a folder marked consultancy expenses. At first, she thought it was just business paperwork, but as she flipped through the pages, her heartbeat quickened. There were huge payments made every month to someone she'd never heard of. The amounts were far too high for simple consulting work. Amara froze. Something felt wrong, but she couldn't quite explain it. She told herself it was probably nothing. Kojo handled so many deals. Still, the thought lingered in her mind that night as she lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, unaware that she had just touched the edge of a terrifying secret. A few days later, Amara's world began to quietly shake. It started on an ordinary afternoon at her event studio in OSU. The air smelled of coffee and fresh flowers as her assistant, Efua, arranged decorations for a client meeting. But Efua seemed distracted. Her hands trembled slightly as she tied ribbons on the chairs. When Amara asked what was wrong, Efua hesitated, looking around to make sure no one was listening. Then she whispered, "Madam, please don't get upset, but I heard something strange about your husband." Amara frowned, half curious, half annoyed. "What do you mean?" she asked. Efua's voice dropped even lower. "I was at the Golden Tulip Hotel last night. Mr. Kojo was there, talking to a man people call Black Moses. I've heard that name before. He's not a business consultant, he's a fixer, someone who makes people disappear." Amara blinked in disbelief, then laughed nervously. "Efua, that's ridiculous. You've probably been watching too many movies." But Efua didn't laugh. Her face was pale, her eyes full of fear. "I wish it was a movie, madam, but I saw his face. People say when Black Moses gets involved, someone always ends up missing." Amara brushed it off, pretending to forget about it, but the words followed her like a shadow. That night, she tried to shake the unease as she and Kojo sat at dinner. He smiled across the table, perfectly calm, asking about her day. Yet something in his eyes made her skin crawl, a distant, calculating look she couldn't read anymore. The next morning, while searching for a file in Kojo's drawer, she came across an envelope with her name printed on it. She opened it, expecting something ordinary, maybe a surprise letter or document for her business. Instead, her heart stopped. It was an insurance policy, brand new, naming Amara Owusu as the insured. The payout was enormous, worth millions of cedis. But there was one chilling detail. The sole beneficiary was Kojo. Her hands shook so badly that the papers slipped from her fingers. She picked them up, reading every line again, hoping she had misunderstood. But it was clear. If anything ever happened to her, Kojo would become an even richer man. A wave of nausea hit her. Her mind raced back to Efua's words. He's not a consultant, he makes people disappear. The consultancy payments she had seen now made a terrifying kind of sense. Her pulse thudded in her ears. For the rest of the day, Amara couldn't focus. Every sound startled her. The buzz of her phone, the slam of a car door outside, even Kojo's voice echoing from another room. She smiled and acted normal whenever he looked at her, but inside, her thoughts were spinning. Could her husband, the man she once loved and trusted with her whole heart, actually be planning something unthinkable? For the first time, Amara began to wonder if the life she was living wasn't a blessing at all, but a trap built perfectly to destroy her. A few days after finding the insurance papers, Amara noticed a sudden change in Kojo's behavior. The cold, distant man she'd grown used to was suddenly warm again, almost too warm. He brought her flowers, complimented her cooking, and even started calling her by the pet names he hadn't used in years. At first, she wanted to believe it. Maybe he had realized how far they'd drifted apart. Maybe he wanted to fix things. But deep down, her instincts whispered that something wasn't right. His smile didn't reach his eyes. His hugs felt rehearsed, not real. Every word sounded carefully planned, like he was reading from a script. One evening, Kojo came home early with a wide grin and said, "Babe, we need a break from the city. Just the two of us. Let's go to Adafoa this weekend. You'll love it. Quiet beach, candlelight dinner, no phones, no work." Amara's stomach tightened. Adafoa was beautiful, a place where the Volta River met the Atlantic Ocean. But it was also isolated, far from the city, with long stretches of road surrounded by forest and water. Still, she smiled and nodded. "That sounds lovely," she said softly, pretending to be excited. That night, she couldn't sleep. Kojo was in his study, talking on the phone. His voice was low, but something about the tone made her uneasy. She quietly walked closer to the door and held her breath. Then she heard it. His voice, calm, cold, and deadly serious. "Make it look like an accident. No traces." Her whole body froze. For a second, she thought she might faint. The room spun as his words sank in. He wasn't talking about business. He was talking about her. She backed away slowly, trying not to make a sound, her heart thudding so loudly she was afraid he'd hear it. She went straight to their bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking uncontrollably. The man she had once trusted with her dreams, her secrets, her life, was planning to kill her. When Kojo walked in a few minutes later, acting like nothing had happened, Amara forced a smile. He leaned down to kiss her forehead, and she pretended to yawn. "I'm just tired," she murmured, hoping he couldn't hear the tremble in her voice. That night, while he slept beside her, Amara stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. Every corner of the house suddenly felt dangerous. The walls that once felt safe now seemed like a trap closing in. Even the silence of the night scared her. For the first time, she truly understood. She wasn't safe anymore. Her husband wasn't just unfaithful or controlling. He was preparing to erase her completely. And if she didn't act fast, she might never see another sunrise. The next morning, Amara woke up feeling like she was trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape. Kojo acted as if everything was normal, smiling, kissing her cheek, asking if she'd packed for their romantic week. Every word out of his mouth made her skin crawl. She played along, forcing smiles, hiding the fear burning inside her. She knew she couldn't panic. If he sensed anything, she was finished. As soon as Kojo left for work, Amara locked the door and sat down, shaking. She needed help, someone she could trust completely. The only name that came to mind was Auntie Abina, her late mother's older sister, a retired teacher who had always been her second mother. Without wasting a second, she called her. Auntie Abina arrived within the hour, calm but clearly worried. As Amara told her everything, from the secret payments to the insurance policy to the words, "Make it look like an accident," her aunt's face turned pale. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she took Amara's hands and said softly, "My child, you can't stay here. You must disappear before he makes his move." Together, they began to plan in silence. Amara gathered her most important documents, her passport, birth certificate, and the papers for her business. They packed a few clothes and jewelry she could later sell if needed. Auntie Abina helped her transfer her savings into a new bank account under a different name, one Kojo could never trace. Every move had to be quiet, careful, and invisible. Amara deleted her browsing history, wiped messages from her phone, and even changed the settings on her GPS so Kojo couldn't track where she went. She created a secret email and used it to stay in touch with Efua, who agreed to help from afar. They began using coded messages, short, simple phrases that sounded like work talk but carried hidden meanings. Project moving smoothly meant she was safe. Client canceled the event meant danger. But Kojo's bodyguards started following her everywhere, to the studio, the market, even to her aunt's house. She could feel his eyes on her back like a shadow that never left. Every time she saw his car in the mirror, her heart pounded. She learned to act normal, waving politely, smiling, pretending she noticed nothing. At home, she cooked Kojo's favorite meals, laughed at his jokes, and let him think everything was fine. But every night, when he fell asleep, she packed a little more into her hidden bag and whispered to herself, "Soon." Amara knew one wrong step, one slip of fear or hesitation, could expose her. She was walking a tightrope between life and death, pretending to be the loving wife while secretly planning her escape. She had no idea if she would make it out alive, but one thing was certain, she would not wait around to find out what Kojo's accident would look like. The day of the romantic getaway came faster than Amara expected. Kojo seemed unusually cheerful that morning, humming as he loaded the car. He told her to hurry, saying they should leave early to beat the traffic. Amara smiled, pretending to be excited, though her hands trembled as she zipped her small suitcase, the same one that secretly held a few important documents, her hidden passport, and a change of clothes she'd carefully packed days earlier. She slid into the passenger seat, her heart pounding as Kojo started the engine. The morning sun glowed over Accra, but to Amara, it felt like the beginning of a nightmare. The car sped down the highway, the city slowly fading behind them. Kojo kept talking about the beach resort, the seafood dinner waiting for them, the beautiful view of the Volta River. His voice sounded too calm, too rehearsed, like a man reading lines he'd practiced in the mirror. Halfway through the drive, Amara's phone vibrated quietly in her lap. She glanced down. It was a message from Efua, just 3 words that made her blood run cold. "Run. They know you found the file." Her vision blurred for a second. She felt her heart slam against her ribs. They knew. Somehow, Kojo had found out she'd seen the files. Maybe he had checked his office drawer. Maybe the bodyguard had reported something. Whatever it was, Amara knew this trip wasn't about romance. It was a one-way road to her death. She forced herself to breathe, steady and slow. "Kojo," she said softly, clutching her stomach. "I'm feeling sick. Maybe something I ate this morning. Can we stop at a fuel station? Please." He looked at her, slightly irritated but trying to hide it. "You'll be fine, Amara. We're almost there." She groaned quietly, leaning against the window, acting weak. "Please, just 5 minutes. I might throw up." Kojo sighed and finally pulled into a fuel station by the roadside. "Fine. Make it quick," he said, checking his phone as she stepped out. Amara walked slowly toward the restroom, pretending to wobble. But the moment she disappeared inside, her body sprang into action. Her hidden escape bag was waiting in the small trash bin she had placed there the night before, during a quick visit she'd made under the excuse of buying snacks for the trip. She changed out of her bright dress into jeans and a plain hoodie, pulled her scarf over her hair, and took off her wedding ring. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her reflection was shaking, terrified but determined. "This is it," she whispered. Through the back door of the restroom, she slipped out quietly into the alley behind the station. A bus heading to Kumasi was parked nearby, about to leave. Without looking back, Amara climbed aboard, paid in cash, and took a window seat. As the bus pulled away, tears filled her eyes. Behind her, Kojo sat in the car, checking his watch, waiting for the wife who would never come back. When he finally walked into the restroom and found it empty, realization hit him like a storm. Amara Nyarko was gone, and this time, she wasn't coming back. When the bus finally reached Kumasi, Amara felt like she could breathe again, but only a little. The ride had been long and tense. Every time the bus slowed down, she expected to see Kojo's car behind them. Every time someone stared at her too long, her stomach twisted in fear. By the time she stepped off the bus, her hands were trembling. She was safe for now, but her whole life had changed in a single day. Auntie Abina had already arranged everything through a trusted friend, Madame Surwa, a quiet widow who owned a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. When Amara arrived, Madame Surwa hugged her gently and whispered, "You're safe here, my dear. No one will find you." The apartment was simple, just one bedroom, a small kitchen, and a balcony that overlooked a crowded street. But to Amara, it felt like a lifeboat in the middle of a storm. For the first few days, she barely ate or slept. Every sound, a knock on the door, a car horn, footsteps in the hallway, made her heart race. She kept replaying everything in her mind, Kojo's smile, his voice, his touch. How could the man she once trusted with her soul plan her death so easily? At night, she sat by the window with her phone's flashlight, whispering into the camera. She began recording video diaries, not just to express her pain, but to leave evidence. She spoke clearly, recounting every detail. The secret files, the insurance policy, the night she overheard him say, "Make it look like an accident." She uploaded the videos privately to a cloud account, saving them in case something happened to her. A few days later, Auntie Abina introduced her to a man named Detective Kofi Asare, an honest officer who worked quietly behind the scenes. He met Amara in a small cafe near Kijisha Market, sitting in a corner booth away from the crowd. Kofi was calm, serious, with kind eyes that made her feel safe for the first time in weeks. "I've been following Kojo's business dealings," he said in a low voice. "You were right to run. He's connected to people in high places, politicians, police officers, even lawyers. That's why you can't go back yet. If he finds out you're alive, he'll use every connection to silence you." Amara nodded, her throat tight. "How long do I have to hide?" she whispered. "Until I gather enough evidence to bring him down," Kofi replied. "And trust me, I will." Back at the apartment, Amara tried to stay calm. She changed her routine every day, never walking the same route twice, and avoided using her real name. She prayed constantly, hoping the truth would one day come out. Still, there were nights when fear crept in like a shadow. She would wake up drenched in sweat, half expecting Kojo to break down the door. But then she'd remember the words Kofi told her before they parted. "You're not powerless, Amara. You survived him. Now we make sure he doesn't survive his lies." And for the first time, she started to believe it. Back in Accra, Kojo Owusu was losing control, and he hated it. For a man who was used to having power over everything and everyone, Amara's sudden disappearance felt like a slap to his ego. His plan had been simple: one weekend trip, one accident, and a life insurance payout worth millions. But now the story had flipped. Amara was gone without a trace, and without a death certificate, Kojo couldn't claim a single sadi. At first, he thought she might have gotten cold feet and gone to a friend's house. But when hours turned into days and days into weeks, panic began to set in. He called every contact he had, police officers, private investigators, even a few shady street fixers. "Find her," he barked. "I don't care how. Just bring her to me." But deep down, Kojo wasn't looking for his wife out of love. He wanted to silence her before she could expose him. To protect himself, he started spreading lies. He told neighbors and friends that Amara had been acting strangely for months, paranoid, emotional, unstable. He told her business clients that she'd run away with another man. Soon, gossip spread through Accra like wildfire. The glamorous couple everyone once admired had now become the center of a scandal. And Kojo, as always, played the role of the heartbroken husband perfectly. Behind closed doors, though, his mask was cracking. He threw things across his office, shouting at his assistant. He wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating. The people he'd paid to handle things were demanding more money. The pressure was mounting, and for the first time in his life, Kojo was afraid. Meanwhile, in Kumasi, Detective Kofi Asare was quietly piecing everything together. He worked day and night, collecting financial records, tracing bank transfers, and interviewing people connected to Kojo's shady deals. One of the payments labeled consultancy expenses led to a known criminal linked to insurance scam. Another file revealed offshore accounts filled with stolen money. It was all starting to make sense. Kojo wasn't just trying to kill his wife. He'd built an entire empire on fraud and deception. Kofi sent word to Amara through Auntie Abina that progress was being made. "Stay hidden a little longer. He's getting desperate, and desperate men make mistakes." Amara listened to the message late at night, sitting by her small window in Kumasi. She could feel the weight of fear pressing on her chest, but something else was growing stronger inside her: courage. She watched the news, seeing Kojo attend charity events and pretend to be grieving, and it made her blood boil. But now, she also knew something he didn't. His time was running out. From her safe hideout, Amara followed every update Detective Kofi sent. Each piece of evidence was another thread pulling the noose tighter around Kojo's neck. The man who thought he could control everything was finally losing his grip. And soon, the hunter would become the hunted. Weeks passed, and Amara knew it was time to stop hiding and start fighting back. She couldn't live in fear forever. Every night, she sat on the edge of her bed in that small Kumasi apartment, thinking about how Kojo had almost ended her life, and how many others he might have hurt with his greed. The world saw him as a respected businessman, but Amara now knew the truth. He was a liar, a manipulator, and a criminal. Detective Kofi had already gathered strong evidence, but Amara had something even more powerful: her recordings, her files, and her memories. She decided to do what Kojo would never expect. She opened her laptop, plugged in a flash drive, and began uploading everything she had kept hidden. There were bank statements showing his secret payments, fake consultancy invoices, and transfers to offshore accounts. But the most powerful evidence of all was an audio file, Kojo's own voice saying the words that still haunted her: "Make it look like an accident. No traces." When she heard that recording again, Amara's hands shook, but she didn't stop. With a deep breath, she sealed the flash drive in an envelope, printed out an anonymous note, and mailed it to the Ghana Anti-Corruption Commission. The note was simple: "This man has stolen millions and planned murder to cover it up. The truth is in this drive." 2 days later, the storm hit. The news spread like wildfire across Ghana. Every major TV channel and social media page carried the same headline: "Business tycoon Kojo Owusu under investigation for conspiracy and fraud." People were shocked. Reporters swarmed his office gates. Former employees came forward, sharing stories of shady deals and secret payoffs. The police raided his company headquarters, carrying out boxes of documents. His business partners distanced themselves overnight, and his sponsors canceled deals worth millions. Kojo tried to fight back, denying everything. He went on TV, pretending to be the victim, saying, "Someone is trying to destroy my name." But the evidence was too strong. When the leaked voice recording surfaced, the one where he calmly instructed someone to make it look like an accident, the entire country turned against him. His perfect image was shattered in seconds. Meanwhile, Amara watched it all unfold from her small living room in Kumasi, the TV volume turned low. Her hands trembled as she held her cup of tea, tears filling her eyes. It was finally happening. The man who tried to erase her was being exposed for what he really was. She felt a rush of emotions: fear, relief, anger, and something new: peace. For so long, she had lived as a ghost, hiding in the shadows. Now the truth was out in the open. Kojo's empire was falling apart, and the whole world was finally seeing the monster behind the charming smile. Amara whispered to herself, voice trembling but strong, "You tried to silence me, Kojo. But now everyone will hear the truth." Kojo Owusu was no longer the powerful man he once was. His name filled every headline, but this time it wasn't with praise, it was with shame. His companies were under investigation, his accounts were frozen, and his friends had vanished. The confident man who once moved through boardrooms like a king now sat in his mansion alone, his phone buzzing with calls he didn't want to answer. But there was one number he kept trying again and again, Amara's. When she didn't respond, he started contacting her family. He called her aunties, her cousins, even her old church friends. "Please, tell her I need to speak to her," he begged. "I just want to explain. I was under pressure. I made mistakes." His voice, once sharp and commanding, now sounded small and pitiful. When word reached Amara, she didn't answer right away. She sat quietly thinking. Part of her wanted to scream, to ask him why he did it. Another part of her wanted to walk away and never look back. But deep down, she knew the truth needed a final face-to-face moment, not for him, but for her. She called Detective Kofi. "He wants to meet," she said calmly. Kofi paused. "If you're going, we do it on your terms. Public place, safe, and we'll be nearby." Amara nodded. "Let's end this." The next afternoon, the air in Accra was thick and hot. Amara arrived at a crowded cafe near OSU, wearing a simple white dress and dark glasses. People bustled around, unaware that this quiet meeting would soon become front-page news. Kojo arrived minutes later, looking nothing like the charming businessman he once was. His expensive suit hung loose on his shoulders, his eyes dark and tired. He spotted Amara and walked toward her slowly. "Amara," he said softly, sitting down. "You have no idea what was happening. I was under pressure. The debts, the investors. I didn't mean for things to go that far." Amara looked at him steadily. "You planned to erase me," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "But I erased your lies instead." Kojo froze, the words hitting him like a slap. Around them, people were sipping coffee, chatting, unaware that Detective Kofi and two officers sat just a few tables away, waiting for the signal. Kojo leaned forward, whispering, "Please tell them it's not true. I can fix this. I can give you anything you want." Amara shook her head slowly. "What I wanted was my life back. You took that from me. Now you'll face the truth." At that moment, Kofi stood and nodded to his team. The officers moved in swiftly. Cameras flashed as reporters, tipped off earlier, appeared at the scene. Kojo's eyes widened as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. The cafe went silent as he was let out, surrounded by flashing lights and shouting journalists. Amara sat still, her hands folded, watching the man who once controlled her world finally lose his own. The mask had shattered, and for the first time in a long while, she felt free. Months after Kojo's arrest, Amara finally felt the weight of fear lift from her shoulder. She had moved to Cape Coast, a place where the salty breeze and the sound of waves gave her a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Here, she opened a small event studio, not just to plan parties, but to create a space that empowered women, especially those who had survived abusive relationships. She wanted them to know that strength could be reclaimed, and that life could be rebuilt piece by piece. Her video diaries, once private and hidden for safety, had gone viral online. Thousands of women watched her story, shared it, and left messages of gratitude and hope. "You gave me courage," one message read. "I see now that I can take control of my own life." Every comment, every story, reminded Amara that she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was inspiring others to survive too. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the Atlantic, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Amara walked barefoot along the beach. The sand was cool under her feet, the waves lapping gently against the shore. She breathed deeply, letting the wind wash away the last remnants of fear. "I thought I had to survive him," she whispered to the sea, her voice soft but steady. "I didn't know I was meant to survive for me." The water sparkled in the fading sunlight, and Amara watched her own silhouette reflected on the wet sand. For the first time in years, she felt whole, reborn, resilient, free. The past no longer held her hostage. She had taken her life back, and in doing so had discovered a new purpose. Not just to live, but to live boldly, fully, and on her own terms.